So last week in Laura's message, there was a question that Jesus asked the disciples. This was from Luke 8:25. And the question, where is your faith? Where is your faith? See, today's issue also revolves around the issue of faith. And it seems it is an important one for each of us to ponder as well. Where is your faith? Let's make it more personal. Where is my faith? Today's passage, it picks up immediately after the miracle of the healing of the demon-possessed man and the sending of the demon group known as Legion into the abyss, the bottoms of the cave. Remember that story? Good story. So today, Nancy is going to be reading from Luke 8, and we're going to go through it. So we're going to start right now with Luke 8, 40 to 42. Nancy?
Now when Jesus returned, the crowd welcomed him, for they were all expecting him. Then a man named Jairus, a synagogue leader, came and fell at Jesus' feet, pleading with him to come to his house, because his only daughter, a girl of about 12, was dying.
So two things here. When Jesus returned, the crowd welcomed him. They knew he was coming. Now, Jairus was a ruler of the synagogue, and he came to Jesus. Now, a ruler in the synagogue was a very important position in the culture of the Jewish faith. Do you realize that? Really important. See, the rulers were highly respected, and they had responsibility for ensuring that the people were actually instructed in the Jewish law and in their faith. And yet, this ruler came to Jesus, and in doing so, stepped outside of his role and comfort zone. He came to Jesus, a rabbi who actually challenged the very religious order of which Jairus represented. Do you understand that? He was way outside of his comfort zone. So, did he come in faith? Actually, I don't know. It doesn't say that he came in faith. But what we do know is that he was desperate for his daughter. And I realize in my life, and perhaps in yours, desperation often brings people to the feet of Jesus. And Jesus responded. Now, I'm going to ask you to think back a couple weeks back when the centurion came to Jesus when his servant was paralyzed. And Jesus met him where the centurion was in his faith, and he said, your faith is okay. I'm paraphrasing. Okay, your faith is okay. And he didn't even suggest that he was going. But for Jairus, he met him in the place of the request of his faith. And Jesus immediately moved to go to the home of Jairus. So Jesus didn't have a formula that you had to do it this way or had to do it that way. Jesus meets each of us where we're at. Now there was a crowd, and they were excited to see Jesus. Remember, they'd been waiting for him. It's a little bit like if you've ever been to a rock concert or rock concert for some. Okay, what else?
Wrestling event.
I'm not sure I can even say that. A wrestling event, a sports event. Sports event. Where people were coming and they were excited and they probably had banners and like foam fingers and everything like that, right? They were excited to see Jesus. They'd been expecting him. Now, Jesus was trying to move through the crowd. If you've ever been to, Maple Syrup Festival or anything like that, and you're trying to move through the crowd, Jesus was trying to move through the crowd on his way, yet the crowd was pressing in on him. But then it happened. Nancy's going to read 42 to 48.
As Jesus went on his way, the crowds almost crushed him. And as a woman was there who had been subject to bleeding for 12 years, no one could heal her. She came up behind him and touched the edge of his cloak, and immediately her bleeding stopped. "Who touched me?" Jesus asked. When they all denied it, Peter said, "Master, the people are crowding and pressing against you." But Jesus said, "Someone touched me. I know that power has gone out from me." Then the woman, seeing that she could not go unnoticed, came trembling and fell at his feet. In the presence of all the people, she told why she had touched him and how she had been instantly healed. Then he said to her, "Daughter, your faith healed you. Go in peace."
Your faith has healed you. Go in peace. See, we see again here that it was desperation that brought this woman to Jesus. 12 years. Anything that the doctors of the day had suggested or offered, probably prayers offered, etc. She was desperate. And she was desperate to simply touch his cloak. Just a touch. And his power by the single touch flowed out from him to her. And it was enough. It was enough to heal her. Just a touch. Now, in Jewish culture in those days, in Jesus' time, any woman who was having a discharge of blood for many days would be considered ritually unclean. And you can see this in Leviticus 15, 25 to 27 if you want to check it out. And anyone who touched her would be ritually unclean. Unclean toucher, you're unclean. Yet Jesus himself wasn't made unclean by her touch, but in fact his power overcame anything ritually unclean and brought healing. Her faith in Jesus opened the door to her healing and complete cleansing, allowing her to go in peace. Meanwhile, back in Luke 49 to 50, Nancy, sorry. Well, Jesus was still speaking. Someone came from the house of Jairus, synagogue leader. "Your daughter is dead," he said. "Don't bother the teacher anymore." Hearing this, Jesus said to Jairus, "Don't be afraid. Just believe, and she will be healed." So Jesus didn't lose power through the touch and subsequent healing of the woman, right? You're with that? He didn't lose power. It's not like he has an endless battery charge that as he puts out, his charge goes lower. Absolutely not. He is power. Right? He didn't lose power. His power was and continues, is endless. So even though the sentiment that's being said is, bother Jesus. Your situation is hopeless. By the way, have any of you heard that or felt that said to you? Don't bother, like it's useless. Useless.
That's what it is.
Pardon me?
It is what it is.
It is what it is. Oh yeah, I don't like that statement. I think we've heard that sentiment, and sometimes we've felt that. Oh, I've asked so many times if I'm asked again. So here, the sentiment was, don't bother Jesus. Your situation is hopeless. His response? Don't fear. Believe, and healing will come. Not out loud, but just for yourselves. Have you ever felt your situation that you found yourself in was really either too big or possibly too small to bring to Jesus? I want you to hear this. Jesus doesn't think that. So we're going to go back to Luke 51 and 53, Nancy.
When he arrived at the house of Jairus, he did not let anyone go with him except Peter, John, James, the child's mother and father. Meanwhile, all the people were wailing and mourning for her. Stop wailing, Jesus said. She is not dead, but asleep. They laughed at him, knowing that she was dead. But he took her by the hand and said,
Hang on, we'll go over there in a second. I didn't put the line in the right place. My apologies. Now, in Jewish custom in that day, in the culture, when somebody died, they would hire professional mourners. Okay? And this was to highlight the significance of the loss for the family, to involve the community focus on this loss and the grief, and to give honor and respect to the family, recognizing that they were grieving. So they hired numbers of mourners, and this is what Jesus found when he arrived at the house. But when he spoke truth to them, she's not dead, but asleep. Their response, they laughed at him. See, they may have laughed because they didn't have the personal connection, okay? So they didn't have the hope that maybe she really was alive. They most likely were the hired mourners who, paid to do a job, don't be silly, right? They were functioning totally outside of the understanding of the power of Jesus. They didn't know. So they laughed and mocked. Nancy will do 54 and 56 now.
they laughed at him, knowing that she was dead. But he took her by the hand and said, my child, get up. Her spirit returned, and at once she stood up. Then Jesus told them to give her something to eat. Her parents were astonished, but he ordered them not to tell anyone what had happened.
Her spirit was returned. She got up. She ate. We see this a couple of times in Scripture, don't we? When else do we see this? Pardon me?
Tomb?
The tomb? Same.
Peter's
Lazarus?
mother-in-law.
Peter's mother-in-law? Spirit was returned. She got up. She ate. Jesus himself. Yeah, when Jesus came back in Acts, right? He was saying, give me something to eat. Which confirmed. Flesh and blood returned. Very much alive. Now, in Jewish culture, anyone who touched a dead person This is going to sound like I'm repeating myself, okay? Anyone who touched a dead person was ritually unclean again. This is in Numbers. Jesus has power, had power, has power, will have power over life and death. And rather than Jesus becoming unclean or unworthy by touching humanity, the dead were brought back to life. And that which was considered unclean or unworthy and to be avoided was in fact healed and restored. Jesus touched humanity. Jesus touches humanity. See, the reality is that when we function in our own strength and touch things in life that are unclean, which I have, and possibly you have, it affects us and it can make us stumble. In our desperation, we can reach out to Jesus. We can reach out. We can press through the cracks. We can touch the cloth. And he will wash us clean. He'll heal our wounds. And he'll give us peace. Now, Jesus told them not to tell them. And that confused me a little bit, right? I really don't know why he told them specifically not to tell people, because he did that in other places as well. But I do wonder if, a little bit like the wedding at Cana, when he said to his mom, "My time has not yet come," I wonder if he didn't want the focus to be totally on the miracles, totally on people pressing to him for that might blind them to the bigger picture. Okay? So I don't know, but I was left with that question. So just in case you had that question, I'm throwing it out there too. But where I just want to end is we need Jesus. We need his power, his healing, and his forgiveness. And if we're feeling desperate, unworthy, unclean, this is too big, too small, I don't want to bother him again, it's not the case. We can come to him in faith and believe. He is the Lord and Master of us. Amen. I'm going to play just a little video just to let some of that sink in, and then we'll close, okay?